Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bernidette Davis with Dynamite Insight in the Word today in our prayer series for the week. Reading from our favorite passage our favorite book, A Book of Prayers for Couples by Stormy O'Martian. That's her name. See, every time I start to do this, I get hung up on her name, but here is the book. Just in case for some reason I didn't get it right. Anyway, great book. Love the prayers. I like to share the prayers with us this week and in what I do on a weekly basis with the series. I think it's a wonderful thing to share as married. And matter of fact, I'm happily married. Yesterday I celebrated my birthday. Happy birthday to me. I don't know if I'm going to tell y'all how old I am, but I think I look good for what age I am. Usually I'm not afraid to tell my age, but I'll give you a hint. 1963. Now you figure it out. Not much to figure out. Anyway, okay. It's a beautiful afternoon in the neighborhood. How many of y'all remember, what's the name of that? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He always starts with this little song, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And it's funny because if it's raining, and when I was a little kid, I used to live in Michigan, and it was snowing in the wintertime. You know, we get those horrible blizzards in Michigan. So it'd be like 40 below. I don't know if it's that cold, but it's snowing outside. And if we at home, because schools have been shut down, and we're catching him on television, he's talking about it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Well, it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's a piece. It's a position of the mind. It's a location of the mind and the spirit. So everywhere and every day, anywhere, whatever neighborhood it is, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. All right, let's do our little prayer today. Let me get my readers. And today our prayer is going to be dealing with His affection. His affection. Okay, and here's the prayer. Lord, I pray for open physical affection between my husband and me. Enable each of us to lay aside self-consciousness or apathy and be effusive in our display of love. Help us to demonstrate how much we care for and value each other. Remind us throughout each day to affectionately touch one another in some way. Help us not to be cold and undemonstrative, uninterested, or remote. Enable us to be warm and tender and compassionate, loving and adoring. Break through any hard-headedness on our part that refuses to change and grow. If one of us is less affectionate to the other's detriment, bring us into balance. Change our habits of indifference so that we can become the husband and wife you called us to be. That was really beautiful. That was really good. And the scripture reference is Ephesians 5:28-29. It says, "So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as the Lord does the church." That's wonderful. So husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. Well, I'm not trying to brag, but my husband is a wonderful man. I'm going to talk about Rick today. His real name is Rarick Andre Davis. And this is, I like the topic of this because it deals with affection, and he's a very affectionate man. And I've shared a little bit of where I came from in last week's prayer about something that happened to me when I was a child, a young adult, and it scarred me in my life in areas that I didn't realize that I had been affected until I became involved in relationships, intimate relationships with my first husband. And then, even before then, for a short period of time, trying to connect to a man in a way other than just the superficiality of a basic friendship. And it was difficult for me because of what I endured. I was sexually abused from it as a child, and for so long, and then had to play a game of hiding myself because of what my family was representing themselves to be to the general public. And it scarred me, and I didn't know in areas that was very, very important until I become intimately acquainted with a man. And my affections were, I wasn't in touch with the real me. I didn't know how to reach, didn't know how to touch, didn't know how to allow a person to be affectionate to me. And so because when I tried to reach out and was rejected, that's all I could see, that's all I could feel, was the pain of rejection, because I didn't understand how to connect that. That was a hard thing, guys. And as my book is getting ready to be released in a little while, I'm going to be sharing on that. I'm going to take out some time and really go through the book with you in video series, and we're going to deal with some things. I thank God for how He brought me out of my experience, because it's so eye-opening and so enlightening. But today's prayer dealing with affection, and as I bring it right home, right here, right home to, between me and Rick. When I first married him, we first got married, actually when I first met him, that affectionate part of him was he's so, how some guys it's easy for them to be affectionate, and then some guys it's just hard. They think it's a sign of weakness for them to be, they call it emotional. It's not necessarily emotional, guys. It's just that you know how to release yourself to share and express yourself to the woman that you care for. And being able to release yourself emotionally allows you to display a public display or physical display of affection. And Rick never had the problem doing that. And so when I first met him, I enjoyed it, but I started to become a little annoyed because it seemed like he would be invading my space. And what's funny was because I really wanted him to hold me. I wanted him to hold my hand. I wanted him to, touch my shoulders. And it's like sometimes it was overwhelming. And I didn't want to shrug him off because I really liked it, but I didn't know how to embrace it. So I felt rigid and odd, and I felt out of sync. Rigid was a better word. So I didn't really know how to accept that, but I knew I didn't want to brush him off because I hadn't shared with him what had happened with me until a little later into our relationship. And so I found myself having tried to go back inside of me and find out why am I knew I really, really cared for him, and I was falling in love with him, and I enjoyed being with him, and he made me feel so special. But what was I wrestling with? It was something that was invisible inside of me, but very real, that I was wrestling with, dealing with his affection. And of course, I had to take that to God in prayer and had to ask Him to help me to release that, because I found out that I was holding on to a darkness that had happened in my life, and I hadn't really dealt with it, and it was still there. So I had to go back and find out, why is this, I'm shrugging him off. And I found out that the reason I was doing that was because I was trying to shun the perpetrator of the offense in my life. I was trying to block him out emotionally so I wouldn't feel anything. And those of you that have been abused that way, you know what I'm talking about. It was so often, and it was so intrusive that I had to literally block the feeling, the emotion that was attached to that, because it was coming from the wrong source and the wrong way. And so I couldn't embrace that emotionally. So it became a problem. Now, the only thing about that the longer you do that, the more entrenched it becomes, and the deeper it takes root in your soul and your spirit. And you don't realize it until you get to a place in your life where now there's this man there or this woman there, and you don't know what's going on. You know you care for them, but you find it difficult to receive the touches, the soft expressions of love and concern and care. And they are, sometimes they stumble over it. Sometimes it bothers them. Sometimes some people don't notice it yet, but you do. But then that can become a problem, because over time, if you don't deal with that, it will affect your relationship. You will become hard. You'll become rigid in the relationship. You don't know why. You don't enjoy his holding you or touching you in a certain way. And he doesn't know that he's causing you to have this reaction, and you trying to figure out, why am I feeling this way? But then you might know, and you haven't expressed it or haven't dealt with it, and God hasn't healed you from it. So I'm encouraging you to be honest with yourself. Take that to God. And if you haven't shared with him what happened to you, find a pray about a special time where you can sit down and talk and let him know that it's not him that you're rejecting. You're going to have to deal with that thing. You're going to have to deal with it. It's a very real world. Ladies, you're not going crazy. Man, you're not imagining things. If you've been abused in your past life and now you're married or you're with someone and you're trying to find out why it is that I can't connect with them on that level, and you know that thing happened to you, that's why. And you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to be honest with each other enough to deal with it. But I would encourage you first to go before God and ask God to give you strength and courage to first face it, deal with it. And once you confront with it and deal with the pain of it and let it go and forgive the person who's offended you and let the offense go. And now sit down and share with your spouse or the one that you're going to be, your fiance, and let them know. It is better. Matter of fact, I'm telling you this. It is better that you do that before you guys get married. If that has been something that has occurred in your life, it would be really well if you would deal with that before you guys become husband and wife, because that's a hard thing. It could very easily affect your relationship in so many negative ways, in so many ways that if you don't, you would be going to divorce court or marching into the courts to file papers, and you don't know why. They call it irreconcilable differences. It's not that. You just need to deal with something that's been bothering you. And if that's it, bring it out and let God heal the relationship. Okay, so I thought I'd share that with you. And so, again, he's affectionate that way. And so that prayer now, I have to turn it to me, because I've had to learn how to receive that. I have learned how to receive that. And now I crave that. I enjoy that. And sometimes, because, when I was even raising my children, I found that it was, some of us don't really like our, we're not touchy-feely and, always want somebody holding and touching on you. You feel a little uncomfortable about that. I'm not telling you to try it if that's you naturally, and nothing, nothing is really wrong. You haven't suffered an offense that way when somebody intruded on you in the past. You're just not that kind of person. Now, I would say that as I look back on that, I think that had a lot to do with me. After my children were a little older, some kids are clingy. They always want to hold mom. They get older, when they become teenagers, they really become clingy. Anybody got a clingy teenager? They always want to hold you, want to hug, want to touch. You're like, get away from me, It's I'm learning how to embrace it more, because I still have a teenager at home. And I got an oldest daughter, my baby daughter. She used to do it. I don't know if she do it as much, but she used to do it all the time when she was younger, when she was at home with me. And she's like 18 or 20 then. And she's always wanted to hug and touch and feel. And oh God, what is this? And I'm just, get back, So some people, they are naturally that way. Some people don't mind. But then there's other of us, we start to think, there's something wrong with me. Well, I don't want them to touch me, hold me, feel me, or anything like that all the time. And I'm not talking to you if that's you. If that's natural, that's fine. But if you know that, you're not that way, and you really do embrace that or enjoy that, but yet you feel uncomfortable with it, then maybe something you might want to deal with in your life that is preventing you from enjoying that display of love and affection from the person who's trying to give it to you. After all, everybody needs somebody, and everybody needs somebody to love. So, and God made it so that the affection between us causes us to become closer, and it's a comfort. And so now, as my husband is away from work a lot of times, and his thought of him crosses my mind, and I kind of crave that feeling just to be there. I look forward to the close of the day when we, getting ready to say good night, and go to bed, and we're cuddling and holding each other. And let me say, this is I'm going to be real. Guys, don't feel that when your wife opens the door for you to be affectionate, that she's really wanting you to be sexual. Sometimes it's the comfort for us as women is the holding and the cuddling. It's a comfort zone. It's a way to release the stress of the day. I just want you to hold me. Can we just hold each other without becoming physical? Sometimes that can get in the way. It's not that she's turning you down, she don't want you, or she's not interested in you. But a lot of times as women, we thrive off that comfort zone. That's our comfort. And now ladies, because a man's comfort zone and his way of releasing his stress is to be sexual. And we can find it's easy for us to not want to. A lot of times it's very easy. We get mentally wrapped up in stuff and emotionally wrapped up in stuff, and desire for sex goes out the window. Don't talk about if you're having physical issues or female issues. Not even talking about that. If you just had a bad day, some of us, there is no way we're going to be that way. So, it's like you see him coming, you're like, you really don't want to try me tonight. And if it becomes more and more frequent, we got to watch that, because that can be the enemy setting up a stronghold or a block or obstacle between us to separate us. Because I do know with us as women, it's more mental. We get turned on that way mentally and emotionally. If our emotions and our mentality, our state of mind is in the right place, a positive place, being intimate sexually is easy. Our sense of comfort then, that release, is insecurity and being affectionate and anticipating. We like the anticipation of it. So, we start out, imagining or picturing in our minds that nostalgic feeling or something that creates an environment of romance. That's how we thrive. So if that helps you to become more easy to accept, his advances or his desires, then let's do that. And then now men, as far as that goes, for you to be affectionate, that turns us on. That's a turn on. It's not showing a sign of weakness that you are any less than you are. That's a turn on. So you become more affectionate. Really, it is. Now, there is a difference, and I just mentioned it, between being affectionate and sexual. So remember that. You're going to have to pay attention. So a lot of this, we will give you a signal. If it's going to go from the level of affection to sexuality, then you're going to know without a shadow of a doubt. But if it's that time in her life, or she's just having a bad day, you might have to learn how to curb it just a little bit, find out where she is mentally and emotionally, and then proceed accordingly. That's a little wisdom. And you'll find that though your relationship is not as strained, you might benefit more from a simple night of quiet comforting each other, just holding each other and fall asleep in each other's arms. That may be all you really do need. Maybe you don't need to go all the way through. And you'll find out that the closer you get, the more you do that, the more comfortable you become doing that, the better and easier it is for you to share with each other, and the more sweeter your relationship becomes. Where sex now is not the driving force or the target. It's not the target. It's that which happens as a result of a spontaneous coming together, unplanned, unrehearsed, unpressured result, culmination of a beautiful time together. That's what that is. I find the older we get in our marriage, the better it becomes. And it's not as often as it used to be, of course not. When you marry younger, or you were younger when you married, we are in our mid-50s in life, and you find out that sometimes that just holding hands and in bed and up on, then crawl under the covers and lay your head down for the night and exhale, holding hands and fall asleep. That is just, it's a world of unspoken love. We can speak to each other just by holding each other's hand and just fall asleep. That is a peaceful sleep. No pressure to perform on either end. He doesn't have to feel like he's neglecting you that way, and you don't have to feel like, and he don't have to feel like that you're turning him away, that you don't want him, and he's not attracted to you anymore, and vice versa. Now it's just a coming together and touching each other's spirit, and instead of making love in the physical, you make love in the spiritual. That is so cool. So today, I'm glad I got a chance to share with you. That was beautiful. So, take heart. Marriage requires a lot of work, but the key to a successful marriage is prayer and a relationship with God. I encourage you to stay close to the Lord. Be blessed this week, and share. Reach out with each other. Reach out. Be truthful. Be honest. Sit down and find time for each other. Okay? That was wonderful. All right. God bless you guys. I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful week. God bless you. Bye-bye.